Do any of you guys have the same issue where your leg gets pinched between like the door handle and the steering wheel when your foot's on the clutch, and when you're trying to push the gas in and stuff like that, you got the shifter right here on the other side? With my taller frame, I need a little bit more leg room, and I'm at the extent of the lever on the seat, so I can't extend it back any further. But I've got an idea on how to fix it, so let's get after it. What's up guys, my name is Andy. In this video, I'm gonna make some seat rail extensions for my driver's seat because I just need a little more leg room in my car than what I have. I was looking into buying a set of those extensions. You can buy them anywhere from probably 70 bucks to 150 bucks, depending on what style, aluminum, steel, if you want them integrated into the actual seat rails themselves, or if you just want an extension piece that bolts on there. And I thought, you know what, I think I can make my own for 10 bucks or less. I like making things, I like getting in with the tools and making stuff, so I think I've got some scraps around here that I can turn into some seat rail extensions, and I'll show you how I do it. What I've got here is just a piece of 1/4 inch by 1 inch flat bar. I've got 36 inches here, but I don't need that much. I think I've measured, I'm gonna need about 14.5 inches for each one of the extension pieces that I make. So we're good there. And then I just got some bolts, you know, I got drawers and stuff of extra fasteners and things, and digging through, I think I found what I need. What we do need though is some 5/16-18 or 5/16 by 18 thread bolts. The bolt needs to stick out 1.5 inches to recreate what the seat rails have on the car right now. So I think these are 2.5, so this is plenty. And then what I've got here are these are jam nuts. They're shorter nuts than normal. And the reason why when we bolt this onto the seat rails that are in the car, we're gonna use these to secure this to the existing bolts. And then we're gonna cut the bolt off. And I want this to be as low profile as possible, so it minimizes the height that we're going to lift the seat. Unfortunately, because of this style of extension, we're going to raise the seat 1/4 inch here, plus the height of that, which is about 1/2 inch. I might be able to recess this in here a little bit, but so we're going to pick up the seat about 1/2 inch up off the floor, but because the seat pan slopes backwards and we are going to scoot the seat backwards with this extension, maybe it's a wash. Maybe my seat height will be about the same as it is now, but I'll get more leg room, which is what we're going for. So let's take a look at the rails on the seats and see how this is going to fit in there. So here's that 1 inch bar. You can see that it'll be plenty wide enough to be wide enough for these bolts and whatnot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the back end of it will be, you know, right around this area, but it's going to extend out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2.5 inches from here to there to the new bolt, and the same thing right here, which will be just shy of hitting this rivet. There's 2 rivets on here, so we'll mark that on here. We'll mark where these go. These are 11 inches on center, so that makes it easy when you're marking these up. And then we'll figure out the diameter of those and where they are, so we can. What I might do is just drill a hole in the back side and just kind of hog it out so these things will fit inside. I guess you could drill a hole all the way through, but that'll be fine. And then for this side, what we need to do is do the same thing, make a same piece. It'll be 14.5 inches long, and but we have to carve out a little section for this bracket here, this bracket for the adjustment on the seat rail. So on the back side here, I'm going to grind away or cut away about 1/8 of an inch, maybe just a pinch under 1/8 of an inch to make room for that so it sits flush on this rail. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and cut this thing down to 2 pieces at 14.5 inches long, and then I can start measuring where this stuff is going to be and mark it out on here so I can start drilling holes. All right, there's our 2 pieces. Now what I want to do is I'm going to mark on here. So I know that from the back, the bolt is going to be 1/2 inch from the back of this extension piece. And then it's 11 inches, you know, from that bolt to the next bolt. So we'll mark that out on here. All right, so there's our bolts. Then we want to be 2.5 inches in front of that for the new bolts. So there, old bolts, new bolts. Now we need to mark where those holes are, those rivets in the frames. And if you come from the back of this bracket, it's going to be 3.5 inches to the first one and 7.5 inches to the next one. So that's the center of those rivets in the rail on the seats. So now we need to start marking this up so that we can start drilling the holes. Actually did it real quick, just duplicated the same thing since it's the same layout. The only thing different is that little cutout that we're going to have for the bracket, which we need to do on these. I also marked which one's the top of this because on the back side I'm going to have some work on one of them done, but not on the top side. I also want to mark on the back of this that cutout that we have to put for that bracket. So I know that it's 7 inches from the back bolt to where that cutout's going to be, and it's a 1/2 inch to the end. So what we'll do is it'll be 7.5 inches from the end of this to where that cutout is, and then it's 1.5 inches wide. So that's how wide that bracket is. But I'm going to give it probably an 1/8 inch on either side of extra little cutout there, so I have plenty of clearance on that. So there we go, that's good. And I know that also, see there's that rivet there, and it's right about the same area, so we're looking good there. I also want to find the center of this piece so we can run a line down the center of this thing and make sure everything's centered up. We'll go through and make a mark where all the holes need to be drilled. So we're going to use a 5/16 drill bit for the studs on the seat rails. We'll use a 1/2 inch for those holes to clear the rivets. And then we need a 17/64 drill bit for these two holes where we're going to have to tap and get ready for these new studs. And because nobody cares about drilling holes, we're just going to go ahead and skip this part. Now the boring part with all the holes is done, and we even got the threads in there, so we're good. I messed up and I started to drill out the hole on the wrong end, so I had to redraw so this is the section that we're going to grind out on the back here. So let's go ahead and put that in the vise and start grinding away, and then see how that comes out. Let's see. You can see how we've kind of ground away some of that thickness of that bar. So let's see how it sits on the rack. All right, so this is that side with that part that I ground out to cover over this bracket. Put that on there. Oh man, that fits good. Oh man, my holes are not perfect, but by boring them out a little bit, everything looks pretty good. Now we can go ahead and put the studs and get those the right length. Let's check the other side real quick. Put this guy on here. All right, yeah. Again, everything's good enough. I think we can go ahead and put the studs in. And also notice here, I did bore this out a little bit extra just so I could sink that nut down a little bit. So just to reduce the amount of height that this thing is creating for us. So cool. Let's get the studs ready. For this part, you know, we just go ahead, there's a couple ways we could do this. We could thread these in down to the bottom and then cut them off at 1.5 inches because that's how long the ones on the seats are. Or, you know, of course we need to put some Loctite on these so that they'll stay in here. But my concern is if we do that, I don't want I guess I could probably clean those threads. What I don't want is when I cut that off, I don't want some hangnail thread on there that makes it difficult to put the nuts on when you put the seats back in the car. So I think maybe let's try this. Let's put 2 of them in on one of these, cut them off that way, and ground the head of this thing, and just make sure it looks good, and see how the nuts go on. If it works good, then we'll do the same thing on the other bar. All right, we're just using some red thread locker. Put a good amount on there. Go all the way to the bottom. All right, that looks good. Same thing on the other one. All right, we'll give We'll give that a few minutes to set up before we cut those off. Now that we let this set up, let's go ahead and mark on here 1.5 inches where we're going to cut these bolts off. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, close enough. All right, grinder time. I was able to get this cut off, and then I ran a tap over the end of this to clean it up, but I noticed that when I was putting these on here so that I could thread these on and try it out, it loosened the stud. So I'm going to let this cure up overnight, but I think this will work. So I can go ahead and get the other one prepped, and then I'll let both of these sit overnight, and then we can paint them. All right, the Loctite is set up pretty good. These threads are all cleaned up, ready to go. I think what we can do is slap some of this masking tape over the threads just to keep them from getting gummed up from the paint. And then I'm going to get these things painted up. All right, let's throw a couple quick coats of paint on here. All right, the last of the tape off of here. All right, there, painted, ready to go. Let's go ahead and get them installed on the bottom of the seat. All right, this is looking good. All right, I only have 3 of those jam nuts. I just have a regular nut, so when I cut this off, I'll just have to grind it a little flatter so that it works out. All right, everything's bolted up. So from here, this is where you cut off the existing bolts. And it's a one-time deal, so when you cut this off, there's no going back. And I took these and I put them in the car to make sure that the new bolt placement aligns with the holes in the floor, and they just drop right in, which is great. So let's get the grinder, cut off the old studs, and then we're ready to go. And make sure you cut off the correct ones, don't cut off the new ones. All right, guys, from here, let's go put it in the car and see how it came out. All right, we got the seat bolted in. Let's climb in and see how we do. Oh yeah, I can already tell this is much better. I've got the seat, yeah, it's all the way back, so I could move up if I need to, but right now I can tell right off the bat, you know, my leg still is touching this, but it's not pinched in between the door and the handle like it was before. It was more kind of like this before, which I'm kind of exaggerating it, but still it was like that, whereas now it's more underneath the steering wheel, which is better. And then before, I mean, this was a lot closer. So we're looking a lot better, and my head's not touching the ceiling. Everything looks good. I like it, and this is great. All right, guys, that's it. That is a seat rail extension done. Pretty easy. Like I said, I wanted to make something myself. I'm sure that, you know, spending 70 bucks, 100 bucks, whatever, for a set of rails, you know, would have been fine. I'd rather have the money for other parts on my car. I had some scrap pieces around the garage. I think you guys could duplicate the same thing for 10 bucks or less maybe. And then really it worked out better than I thought. I think most rail extension pieces are 2-inch extensions, and so I did 2.5 just to get a little bit extra room just in case I need it. And with that seat all the way in the back position, I find that to be just right. I'm gonna drive the car around and see how, you know, where I really need to be, but I think it worked out good. I'm only 6 feet tall for those that are gonna want maybe a comparable frame or something like that. I felt kind of pinched in there, so with those extensions, it's much easier, especially with the manual transmission. With an automatic, it's probably not as big a deal, but with that manual, it's nice to have that extra room. So guys, that takes care of that. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up, and if you subscribe, I appreciate it because it helps my channel out, and we'll see you in the next one.